Now, as you know, for the past few years, the sounds of fighting between the Nigerian army and insurgent groups in the northeast and southeast of Nigeria and criminal gangs in the northwest has reverberated across the country. At one stage, Boko Haram and its allied groups had control of several local governments in the northeast, but they were subsequently dislodged. And since then, the military has slowly but steadily been gaining the upper hand, engaging in what's been described as fast, agile, and superior counterinsurgency operations. But it's had to face new security challenges in the northwest, north central and southeast, as well as a smattering of criminal kidnap gangs elsewhere. So where do things stand now? Well, for the very latest, I'm suitably delighted to say that I'm joined now in the studio by the most senior military officer in Nigeria and highest ranking military advisor to the President, General Christopher Musa, who is, of course, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
The Nigerian security situation has been quite a complicated story to follow, hasn't it? Because there are so many bits to it, from insurgencies to banditry, farmer-herder clashes, to the criminality of robberies and kidnappings. So it's a complex patchwork, isn't it?
Fantastic. Potpourri of problems, yes. Challenges, challenges, challenges. But we're rising up to the occasion. Like when insurgency started, the armed forces of Nigeria has always traditionally been a conventional armed force. And over time, so it took us time to really be able to adjust. We're used to fighting countries. Now we have to deal from enemy within, and that makes it very, very difficult. Because the enemy equally understands that you are bounded by human rights. So he's always mixing within the public. So it makes it extremely difficult. If you make a mistake, there's an outcry against you. And so precision. That has to do with a lot of technology we don't have. So we're gradually trying to build up those capacities, and it's not been easy, but we're heading in the right direction. I can guarantee you that.
So, I mean, you say heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Where do things stand at the moment with all these battles that I just mentioned? I mean, let's start with the insurgency in the northeast.
Yeah.
Have you taken full control of the region, or you haven't quite done that yet?
Well, criminality is something, there is no nation that is crime-free. So it makes it extremely
There's
difficult.
a difference between an insurgency and just random crime.
How it starts from criminality, robbery, gets to terrorism, gets to insurgency. When you defeat that, it comes down that line and comes back to criminality. So we're now in between criminality, banditry, and the last stages of insurgency.
So you've pushed them back, but not out.
Not out. It's going to be extremely difficult to say totally out.
Right.
Yeah, because it's not. There's never a situation where you have 100% crime-free society. It doesn't happen. Sometimes I think we beat ourselves a lot, making it look as if it is. Probably because we're not used to it. It's a new thing, and it's a new thing all over the world. Remember, the US was in Afghanistan for 20 years. They fought.
But it's not their country, though.
Yes,
it would be
it's not
a
their
little bit
country.
different if you're
But
in
it gave
the
them a lot.
borders
It
of
gave
the
them a lot
United
of freedom.
States.
It gave them a lot of freedom, and with the technology they have. Remember, the budget of the U.S. last year, 2023, was $858 billion. They produce the equipment. We don't. You know, so we're going through challenges. We have the economic issues we're having, and it's not only the military security. So we're trying with the little we have, and then trying to push up.
Okay, so that's the northeast.
Yes.
Push them back, but not out.
Not out.
But to a place where you feel comfortable.
They are now within. Yes, now they are within the Lake Chad area,
right,
which is almost like a
different country.
A different country.
Right.
Yeah. So to that extent, yes.
Okay.
For the northwest, is a social malaise. Why I said so is, kidnapping now has become business. You find families, brothers kidnapping sisters. Some individuals are even kidnapping themselves.
And to some extent, that's a police job, isn't it?
Good. Now, the new world order is unlike how it used to be. In the past, conventional, so the police had the privilege of handling what is going on within the country. Now, there is no difference. The gaps are blurred. The lines are blurred, so everybody has to be up and doing. And that's why we've always made it clear that the armed forces alone cannot do it, the security forces alone cannot do it. All Nigerians must take ownership of the challenges we're facing. You see something, you report as quickly as possible. I mean, they are neighbors. You see somebody that doesn't do anything. He's driving a flashy car, living larger than life, no place of income. But everybody keeps quiet. So it makes it, we can't be everywhere. So we need the citizens to take that ownership, to know that they have a responsibility too, to rise up and checkmate such things. And that's the only way it makes it a lot easier for us to work. And I'm happy with forums like this that will be able to highlight things we're doing and the need, appealing to Nigerians to also cooperate. We're getting that kind of, and that's why you see it's getting better. I think in the entire North Central, Northwest, Northeast, is really getting better. We came in last year, the present regime came in, and when we came on board, we realized these are the issues. We need to appeal to all the governors, all the stakeholders to be part of the success. And we are getting that support, and it's making it a lot. And that's why you see things are really beginning to pick up.
Well, slowly. Certainly the North Central region, which has been battered by sort of farmer-herder clashes. I mean, things seem to have quietened down there a bit. I mean, we're not in the business of just sort of knocking the... I mean, where there's some success, we obviously acknowledge
we do appreciate
that. I mean, how has that been achieved?
No, it's been well because, like I said, it's a whole of society approach, and that's what we adopted. My philosophy has been people-centric. The armed forces firstly must ensure that we show that we're committed, we're sincere, we're impartial in what we're doing. And that is what Nigerians have seen. And then people are now warming up. Now people are no more scared of reporting because they know that they will be protected. Because somebody feels if he reports certain thing and then the enemy comes after him, next time nobody wants to talk. But now they can know that they can tell us things, we'll take action, and they are protected.
And that suggests that your intelligence gathering is getting stronger.
It's getting stronger, getting better, and we're getting a lot of cooperation from Nigerians.
Right. Yeah. And the Southeast and the insurgency there, what's the latest update?
Fantastic. I mean, with the arrest of Samuel Ekpa, you can imagine what has gone up. People are even speaking up in the Southeast now for the first time. The stay-at-home thing is now being watered down, and I'm sure it's going to stop immediately. We are working together with the governors. What we try to do now is to discuss with everybody, because we realize that fighting asymmetric warfare is about communication. If you stay off and people don't know what you're doing, you get into trouble. So we're taking everybody around, we're bringing everybody together to know that they have a responsibility to do, and that's what's giving us the successes.
And is it IPOB that's the problem there, or are there other criminal gangs and even hired political thugs that have taken advantage of the situation? Because IPOB have consistently denied many of the attacks that are credited to them.
Well, they always want to deny it. I mean, basically, but everybody knows, they know it, that they're the ones. It's IPOB and ESN, and again, criminal elements. Normally when there's impunity, a lot of acts of criminality, and then criminals take advantage of that. Everybody wants to be part of it, and that's what's happening.
But I mean, insurgent groups tend to want to, admit that they've claim responsibility. I mean, it gives them power and makes them more feared. So why would IPOB say they're not the ones who are doing it?
Well, probably because of the nature of the individuals that are involved. It's a the one in the Northeast, basically most of them are illiterate, not too well learned. The ones in the Southeast, so they know the implications of what they are doing, and that's why they want to stay away, because in case they have been arrested, they don't want to be prosecuted. So those are the difference we have. But we know them, and then with the arrest, things are really picking up. And the good thing is that we have a good team. Right from the presidency, the judiciary, the National Assembly, the National Security Advisor, the Ministers of Defense, Minister of State Defense, we are working as a team. And I think that's what's giving us this impetus, because we all know these challenges, and we're facing them squarely.
And so we have the Nigerian army battering away at these many security threats, across Nigeria. How much of these collective challenges weakened the Nigerian army? And are you able to give us a broad sense of the losses that the army has sustained as a result of these multiple conflicts? I mean, I wonder how much the army's been hobbled by them.
The losses mostly on equipment, but the good thing is that...
you would have lost quite a lot of men.
Men, yes, but not so much as to degrade our capacity and capabilities.
But how
just
many,
recently,
roughly? I mean, Nigerians have a right to know, don't
yeah,
they?
we'll make that available. Now, I don't have the figures. I don't want to speculate.
Right.
Yeah, we just, at Depot Nigerian Army last week, we just graduated another 5,800 recruits.
Right.
Nigerian Defense Academy, we commissioned over 800 officers, young men. So we're getting them in. And then we're working. You know, training, for us, training is critical because we want them to do the right thing. We want them to act professionally, which is very critical because we want to avoid mistakes. These mistakes also cost us a lot, and it affects the morale of the troops, which is critical. If the troops are not happy what's going on, it's going to affect their ability to perform. So
Indeed.
It's very critical for us to do. But nothing has affected our morale. We're working very well. All our troops are being paid, their welfare taken care of. It's not enough. We still will need more, but with what we have, we're still projecting and will continue to do. And I'm sure that the president is equally behind us solidly, and that is one good thing that we have.
So strategically speaking, and just to summarize that section of our discussion, you are now unquestionably on top of the security situation. You have control of it, but you haven't completely turfed these various security threats
Yes,
out.
because asymmetric warfare, you are dealing with, for the insurgents, you are dealing with ideology.
Right.
You can't read it on somebody's face. And why it is so difficult is the non-state actors, nothing is written on their faces. You only know them when you see them armed, or when you follow their activities and you're able to track them down. So those are, so a lot of technology is required. We don't have that much, but the little we have, we're doing headway. And the good thing is that we're working like a team, like I mentioned. The armed forces, the police, other security agencies, everybody has a responsibility. All our joint task forces have all the components of the security agencies, and everybody is playing his role. So that has really made it a lot easier for us, and that's why we're working together.
And we've seen Nigeria go from being a key player in the West African sub-region to becoming, to some extent, less of a voice in determining the political direction in the region. I mean, you know, a few years ago, Nigeria was leading the charge to restore democracy in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, even more recently in the Gambia.
Yeah.
But I mean, following all these military coups in the Sahel and the failed attempt by President Tinubu to intervene to restore democracy there, I mean, if Nigeria can take full control of its own security challenges, is that likely to restore this country to the front seat position when it comes to solving the insecurity and at least giving confidence?
Yeah, I think Nigeria is still there. In Nigeria, in ECOWAS, Nigeria is still the country to deal with. Remember, the president is the chairman of ECOWAS countries, which is still very, very, is a good thing for us that we're doing that. And we're still playing major roles. As we speak, you remember we just finished the African military games. We had the Malian team, we had the Burkina Faso team, we had the Libyan teams. Nigeria is still a force to reckon with. We just need to do more. And as we speak, even when these countries are pulled out, we're still discussing with them. Remember, not long ago, I visited Mali, I visited Niger Republic. I had discussion with the Chief of Defense Staff on the need for us to continue our operation, because what we understand is that the Sahel region, we must work together for us to succeed. And that's what we are doing. So politically, yes, there might be issues on ground, but militarily, we're all working as a team because we know security is everybody's responsibility. And then these individuals we're dealing with don't respect any borders. So if you think it's not your responsibility, they will come after you. So we still have a team working, and we'll continue to do that. Politically, we're equally meeting them. Not long ago, myself and the NSA also visited the Chadian president. We saw him, and we discussed with him and took the message to Mr. President. And we're doing so. Very soon, we're also going to meet the Malian teams and the Burkina Faso guys. So we're working around the clock. Militarily, Nigeria is still strong. As we speak, we have our troops in Gambia, in Central African Republic, very soon probably in Sierra Leone. We're also stabilizing these countries, despite our challenges. So we have that capacity to do what we're doing here and externally at the same time.
And yet, despite all these things, I mean, some would say you would say that, wouldn't you? I mean, you're the head of Nigeria, you're the most senior military officer. You're not going to say, well, it's a load of crap, flush them down the toilet.
But the truth about it is that we'll never lie.
Right.
That's one thing I know I will hold us, yes.
Nevertheless, I mean, a lot of people, I mean, part of what you have to deal with, which is why you're sitting here, is the perception of the public, the way they see the army. And there is this sense that Nigeria's army has been severely degraded, not so much because of the people in it, but also because of so many other things. Lack of funding, corrupt politicians, a politicized army, I mean, all kinds of issues. And that sense, there is that sense in Nigeria still, and I'm sure you hear it from time to time, where people say, you know, we need to bring mercenaries into this country. No. Well, what is your reaction?
We don't need mercenaries. We don't need any foreign boots on Nigerian soil, and that is not even being thought out. We don't need any military base. You remember because of the
I was going to ask you about the military
base,
but just let's talk about the mercenaries first.
The mercenaries, no, we have the capacity to do that. We have told all the countries we do training together. All we need is to get these equipments that we are fighting. Now, this war that we've been going has enabled us to also build up the capacity of also producing our own equipment. That we're doing. I just came in from Jaji this morning. We're now converting and producing our own APCs gradually, assembling them for now before we start full production. And so we believe that if we're able to get these things right, we'll be able to do well. We can do so much.
Right, so you don't need
we don't. We have the capacity to do that. We have done that. Remember when we stabilized Liberia? We went to Liberia as a nation then. We went to
but that was then.
Yes, that's how many years ago. We can still do the same thing. You know, the good thing I want to tell Nigerians is the armed forces has remained a beacon of hope for Nigeria. We will continue to support democracy. No military personnel is interested in any coups, none at all. We thrive better in a democratic setting, and that's what we want to do. So we want to sustain it. I know the armed forces is just a tool to democracy for us to defend and to protect every Nigerian inside and outside. That is our role, and that's what we're going to continue to play.
Well, you mentioned the issue of military bases. I mean, there's a story that's been going around that Nigeria has granted permission to France to establish a military base in Nigeria.
Not even considered.
Is that a fact?
It was not even a part of discussion. It was not at all. Like I said, you know, I think the thing people have against the military sometimes is because of the past military regimes. But that has gone for 20-something years. We have shown capacity, we have shown our willingness to continue to subject ourselves to democratic norms. And that's what we'll continue to do. So, and that's why forums like this is what we take advantage of, to show Nigerians that this is a different armed forces. We are people-centric. We are for Nigerians. And we're here to protect Nigerians. Everything that we do.
Yeah, the problem general is that the issue that brings France in is not within Nigeria's borders. It's outside Nigeria's borders. It's a threat from the Sahel. It's a threat from other parts of North Africa, coming down from Libya and all the rest of it. And I'm wondering if the idea of a military base, whether it's French or American or something else, is something that might be on the agenda at some future date? Or can you say incontrovertibly that no foreign countries will be allowed to set up a military base in any part of the country?
It is a no-no.
Bearing in mind that you're not going to be the chief of defense staff forever.
It has never happened.
So you can only speak for about the time when you're around.
I've been in the system for almost 30-something years now. Since I've been there, we've not had one. Not now and not ever. All we want to do is to continue to train together. We can train together. We send our officers and soldiers to these countries. We have assisted them severally, even these so-called big countries. We have done so much. It's an inability to get the equipment that we need. Even with our money, it's been difficult getting some equipment. And so we feel, and that's why I'm happy with Mr. President approving the bill on DICON for us to produce. Now we are partnering with a lot of original equipment manufacturers for them to come into Nigeria and produce in situ, because we know with a population of 200 million, the market is there. And then we can also reach out to countries, our neighbors, and that would be great for us.
So what would be the implications for Nigeria's sovereignty if foreign military bases were allowed to be set up in this country from your military perspective?
From
What
this
would be the
perspective,
implication?
The implication is that you sold your sovereignty to somebody else.
Well, they're establishing a military base. It doesn't mean you've sold your sovereignty.
Of course. Do you know what's happening in Japan? Japan, they have a military base. You don't control what they do. They don't follow your laws. You don't have any prosecutorial opportunity on any of them. You don't do that. And then what we know is that once you allow any of these foreign countries in, one, you know the dynamics in the world. You come to the West, the East takes the advantage, and then we turn the West, our region to a proxy war. Who wouldn't want that? We have enough challenges we're facing. We'll not allow any of them come in. All we need is we're going to cooperate, work together. We get the equipment, we fight our battles.
Right. Okay. Well, that sounds very reassuring. Yeah. So we will obviously accept your assessment of that and you know, go with it. But let's talk about still the internal threats, because that really is it, not so much the foreign bases or anything like that. Who are the new group called Lakurawa?
Lakurawa, they are not a new group. They've been in Nigeria since 2018.
Well, if they've been in Nigeria, why have you allowed them to be in Nigeria?
They didn't come as terrorists or as non-state actors. You know, this is what we see. Sometimes, how did Boko Haram start? When they started, we looked the other way around. If we had nipped it in the bud, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today. So they came in, the communities invited them in, because, you know, we share about 1,500 kilometers border with Niger Republic. 7 Nigerian states, we have common affinity, common religion, common cultures together. So it's difficult for you to separate them. So some people from these areas brought them in as friends to come and stay. And
armed people?
No, they were not armed then.
Right, okay.
They were not armed. And then when they came in, you know, they told them that they didn't have any problem with them. Their problem they had was with Niger Republic. So they accepted them and kept them in, and then they were, you know, showing them, okay, the government is too far away. I'm here. I have some funds. I could give you money to do this. Give you money. Gradually, they bought their way in, and then before they now turn around and say, okay, now you start have to pay for us being here, because they couldn't get enough funds, and that's where the problem started. It was only when that started that the cry came out. Right. So now we are reacting to that, and now I can tell you operations are ongoing. We're taking them out completely, and we're working together with Republic of Niger. We have 20 kilometers right of pursuit, so we can take them out into, because normally what they do is they go across the border, you put them the heat, they cross into international borders, and you leave them. But now we have that, we do that with Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, and Benin Republic. So we're working on that, and I'm sure within a very short time it will be cleared. Right.
What about things like oil theft? I mean, that's a big problem in this country. It is not only, I mean, it's eaten into this country's economy, and technically it affects your budget as well.
So much.
But a lot of the allegations there are aimed against the army.
Well, let me say this. It's easier to point. You know, one thing I've observed is that the armed forces seem to be the fall guys. I mean, everybody does. If you want to blame anybody, blame the armed forces. Just throw us under the bus.
Well, I mean, the local people who observe what is happening,
well,
they talk to us.
We live with these local people. And I can tell you, Mr. President 3 months ago gave us a mandate. He wanted us to restore production. And then we're about 1.4, 1.5, and we assured him that we'll do. Our target for this year was 2 million barrels per day. So far, we have achieved 1.8. Now, what is going on there is there are a lot of issues on ground beyond the ordinary eyes. I can tell you for free that the armed forces are doing everything possible. I can tell you.
But is there an element of corruption? I mean, you've been very honest and straightforward with us. Is there an element of official collusion by way of the army or possibly the navy or any of the
If you say official collusion, making maybe an arrangement from the headquarters for
no. What I mean is by people who are wearing uniforms.
There's a probability. There's a probability. But what I tell you
But I would have thought that you'd be more definitive. I mean, if you're there to tackle the problem, you'd be more able to tell us definitively that there is a problem here, and we're
definitely
definitely
there's a problem, but not to that extent that it makes any big difference. What we do is that we have standing court martials all over the theaters. Any member of armed forces knows that if he's arrested.
Have you court-martialed any of them?
In the past, yes, but as of recent, we made sure that everybody is above board, and that is working very well. And I can guarantee you that What we're doing now is a lot better. We're getting it right. We've centralized our operations, because then, why it was easier was because a lot of people were operating in silos.
Right.
So they had that ability to be able to do things on checks. Now we have a central joint task force, central monitoring team that is watching everybody operating within that general area. So we're seeing everything, and then action has been taken.
And is that what you're doing now that you weren't doing before?
Yes. Now we're doing it more holistically and more realistically.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. What about this nettlesome question? The issue of the missing Chibok girls.
Yeah.
What update can you give us? Is it over? We should forget about them and that's it?
No,
they're never going to come home?
No, it's not over. I was in the theater. I was able to recover 11 of them. When I left the theater, so far we've recovered almost 10 additional ones. Why it is difficult is because you are, like I said, you are dealing with people that are within.
Right.
So if you don't have the information, the right information, tracking them to where, and because they are in the Tumbus is where you have the Lake Chad area. And so that's an area that is not too well known, it's not open. So, but we are still following, and as soon as we get them, we bring them out and then hand them over back to government. It is a very sad event, right. I must tell you for real.
How many are still missing? I mean, just roughly speaking, because I know it's difficult to ask you whilst you're sort of sitting there. But broadly speaking, dozens are still missing.
Yes, right. Dozens are still missing. Yeah,
and there is really very little hope of bringing.
No, there's strong hope. There's strong hope.
What is that hope based on?
We're following on leads. We get information. This one is here, Chibok person here. Then we go and follow.
But they've been gone since 2014.
Yeah, but that's a big issue. It's a big issue.
We are, of course, we're now in December. I hate to ask you police questions, yes. But I mean, the army is playing the role of police in Nigeria. We are entering the Yuletide season. Yeah. Christmas is just a few days away. Do you expect the security situation in Nigeria to worsen during this period? If so, what would your advice be?
No, not at all, because we already know that during this period, things really tend to get bad because people want to make quick cash, quick money to spend. The police, the IGP is doing a good job. He has pushed more men outside, the civil defense doing the same thing. The armed forces, we're still projecting our own work. We're not relenting on any aspect. So we are sure that there will be a peaceful celebration.
But I mean, when you look at if you drive from here, for example, to some other part of the country, particularly if you're going south, you see a lot of checkpoints. Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of both police and the army. And a lot of transporters and people in transport complain that they are regularly frisked by those people. They're stopped, monies are collected from them. I mean, you would probably say that the army does less of it than anyone else, but the army is there watching the police doing it.
Well, not watching. We will stand there and watch.
Well, I mean, okay, let me put it this way. You can see them doing it.
Yeah, but the truth about it is that we're working very hard to stop. It's a national malaise, like I said. It's a social issue we have in Nigeria. But we're working very, very hard. Members of the armed forces know. We pick you up for as little as 10 naira. Once you do that, you are leaving. We have jailed a number of military guys. We don't condone that at all. And we're working on that. And also the IGP too has also intensified this. He has an independent patrol team that tries to go around and then the issue of the frisking. If I tell you the number of weapons, drugs, illegal trafficking in human beings that have been stopped because we're checking them. Sometimes when you have situations, you adjust to those situations. And when it gets better, now it is getting better, and we're beginning to bring down most of these issues. We're hopeful that by next year, for us, next year is a defining year. We want to make sure that we're able to achieve so much next year. That's what we're working towards.
Right. So what are you aiming to achieve next year then?
Peace, more peace for Nigeria. Now it is on, at least most Abuja-Kaduna road used to be very, very tense. Now you move around very well. You go there at night, it's unbelievable when you see people moving around. So we want to make sure that there's that peace. Chafe Road used to be very bad. Since we've deployed, things have improved. And all over the country. So we're doing so much to ensure that Nigeria is peaceful. But all we need is for Nigerians to understand that we can't do it alone. And like I said, what we are doing is the kinetic effort. And kinetic can only give you 30% and below. 70% has to do with good governance, justice, equity, and fairness. These are the things that will mitigate and reduce this to the barest minimum. We have freed a lot of areas. Once people don't feel they don't have water, electricity, no roads, it's difficult. A hungry man is an angry man. So whatever it is we're doing, as long as they can't eat, they can't go to school, it's difficult. So that's why I said that it's important that we must, as a society, come together to make sure that these things are provided, and it makes it a lot easier.
That's a very important point you've made there, and I think a lot of people would be very happy to hear you say that, because you're saying what many people believe is the truth in this country, which has nothing to do with politics, and all the rest of it.
Yes.
And but you never really get the chance to say those things, do you, to the powers that...
No, well, as the Chief of Defense Staff, I'm in between the military and the civil. So when I have the opportunities, I always try to bring this, that for us to succeed, it's important that these other aspects come into play, or else 30% cannot solve the problem. We need the 70% to come in. If 40% in that 70 comes in, we're in 70%, which is good. So that's why it's important for us to know. So dividends of democracy is critical.
Absolutely. And I can see that you are clearly someone who is a people person. You seem like a very likable person. Talking to you, you don't have that kind of ramrod, stern military look. You sort of mean, you seem like an approachable person.
We are people-centric.
So yeah, well, that's the way it ought to be. And if you are people-centric, the question a lot of people from the southeast of Nigeria will ask you is, why are there so many roadblocks in the southeast?
You know, the terrain. We operate based on the terrain. If the terrain is open, it's less. If the terrain is closed, it's more. Because if you don't do that, you give the ability of the enemy to move around freely.
But there is the same kind of terrain in the southwest. There is the same kind of terrain in the Midwest.
Southwest, what is the threat level? The threat level isn't that much. So that's the issue. You see, the thing is that if we make mistakes, people get killed. And people feel we're not doing our job. So we have to take whatever it is that we need to do to ensure that we secure the individual. Sometimes it could be difficult. Sometimes it could be painful. And it seems as if we're being very hard. But it just depends. I mean, you can see that even at that, we're now beginning to reduce, seeing that, look, things are getting better. We don't want to just like that come and impugn on people. No. For us, we don't like it. But sometimes we're forced to do it because that's the only measure we need to do at that time. And once it gets better, we pull out.
On that note, I think we've had a very good chat.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank you very much indeed for coming in and for taking the time to talk to us and sitting there and listening to us sort of ask you all these questions. General Christopher Musa is the most senior military officer in Nigeria. He's the highest ranking military advisor to the president, and he is Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.